along the lines of, you made a great point. I mean, Obama basically had a 2-year flawless campaign. There was a couple bumps with Reverend Wright, and then when Palin was selected, but other than that, it went so smoothly. And a big part of that is 9 out of 10 journalists that cover the White House and cover politics are liberal, and they favor the left. So a lot of things that would disqualify any other candidate, especially a Republican candidate, was never allowed to surface, except for some conservative media sources like Fox News or World Net Daily or somebody like that, or what we do. So It didn't surface, Jen. This is also interesting too, because at one time I felt that McCain would be great for Israel security, great for U.S. security, and that would probably enhance his chance. As a matter of fact, even around September, it looked like he pretty much had it. He was starting to move ahead. Palin created excitement, and then this major economic crisis happened, and it affected things. But the key here, Rabbi Daniel Lapin told some friends of mine, as well as Lance Lambert,
I remember
told me in
Lance.
Israel, specifically, when I told them, I talked to them about McCain and Israel and the U.S., they go, no. The next president is going to be Obama, because he is the perfect president for the moral times or immoral times that we're living in, and they were both absolutely convinced that he would be the next president because of the condition of the nature of our country. And I think that's part of the reason the Lord's allowed this.
Well, Bill, there's another item here that we haven't talked about, and that is apparently the president may overturn the Defense of Marriage Act. And DOMA was passed by Congress back in 1996 and basically says that the federal government is not to treat same-sex relationships as marriages for any purpose, even if concluded or recognized by one of the states. And that was passed pretty heavily. Well, the Defense of Marriage Act was passed pretty heavily, 85-14 in the Congress and Senate, 342-67. And now this administration may overturn all that?
Absolutely. If you look at that agenda under civil rights, that's all addressed, Jan, every bit of that. And they're going to give civil unions so many rights and benefits, including benefits for federal workers, that it's going to be called civil unions, but basically you'll have all the rights of marriage. And all the details, Jan, are right there in the whitehouse.gov website under agenda, under civil rights. And that's exactly what their plan is. I was at the White House the other day. Actually, it was late last week, and Ed Chen with Bloomberg asked the White House when they were going to move forward with allowing benefits for federal workers, same-sex benefits, and that were they moving forward with a defeat of the Defense of Marriage Act, and they said we are going to move forward as Obama said during his campaign. So that's coming.
Bill, can I, this is Heidi, and I just wanted to pop in here and mention that when I read your newsletter last night, the one thing that popped out to me about this particular subject is that President Clinton actually signed the Defense of Marriage Act. So to me, it shows an extreme difference between those two administrations, both Democratic administrations.
Absolutely, Heidi. When as Jan just mentioned, the votes were overwhelmingly in favor of the defense of marriage. It was like, I think it was 83-16 in the Senate, and the House was almost the same percentage. And, here we have a new administration that's completely diametrically opposed to that and does not favor that. And also, unfortunately, with Pelosi and Reid there in Congress and the moral condition of the Democratic Party, I think we'll see this thing reversed and a change. It's hard to believe. That was 1996. I mean, here we are 12, 13 years later, and what an incredible change in attitude.
Bill, when we talked the other day, you were mentioning Rahm Emanuel, who's chief of staff. And by the way, I think your intention is to perhaps somehow befriend him or at least get more acquainted with him than you have with some of the people in the various administrations, particularly the Bush administration. You even want to give him one of your books, Eye to Eye, Facing the Consequences of Dividing Israel. And folks, that is the book you can find at Bill's website, watch.org. You can also sign up for his weekly e-newsletter, Koenig's Eye View from the White House. help the audience understand a little bit better, Rahm Emanuel. There are people who say this is the best thing that could have happened as it concerns the chief of staff, and others are saying, well, Obama's over him, so how much is he, for instance, could he be pro-Israel? His father fought in the Jewish underground in Israel in the mid-40s against the British, fought with the Irgun. How do you perceive Emanuel helping to govern?
Well, it's an interesting one, Jan, because, as you said, his father was part of Irgun. He has deep roots. Irgun was part of, Menachem Begin was part of that. Rahm Emanuel's father was part of that. A lot of the way these heroes helped lead Israel to the point that they became a nation. These are some of Israel's original heroes. His dad was born in Jerusalem. They moved to the United States, and his dad's a medical doctor in Chicago, a very well-respected man, and obviously very pro-Israel. Rahm has volunteered for the Israeli Defense Force, working at bases during Desert Storm and some other skirmishes. He's very, I understand he goes at least once a year to Israel in the summertime. He has a heart for Israel, and I did some study on Rahm and his background because he's a political pit bulldog. The Republicans don't like working with him, and he rubs people wrong. But what's interesting here, Jan, is he choreographed the handshake between Rabin and Arafat when he served in the Clinton administration. He was very hopeful that there would be a time where Israel would live in peace and security. But 24 months ago, he said, I don't see, under the circumstances with Hamas and even with Hezbollah on the northern border, the possibility of a peaceful Palestinian state or the possibility of peace for Israel seems remote. And I think where he's moved from a hopeful position to a more pragmatic position, and I believe that is definitely the way he believes now, that peace just doesn't seem practical, especially with Hamas controlling the Palestinian Authority. So based on that, I am favorable. I favor the fact that he's moving in the right direction, and you just can't get away from the deep roots that his family has to the nation of Israel, as well as his mother being the first flight attendant hired by El Al Airlines. So he's got great connection to Israel, and I think he's going to be an important component going forward.
All right. I want to transition into the economy, actually the world economy. But let's focus first on, let's put an extra spotlight on the American economy, because all sorts of stories, and you know it very well, are popping up about, first of all, a global alternative to the U.S. dollar. And apparently in this upcoming G20 meeting in London, the International Monetary Fund, with the support of the U.S. and Russia, seem to be poised to launch a one-world currency at that particular meeting. We're reading more and more about it. Joel Rosenberg sent out an e-alert this week, and he said that the United Nations panel says that the world should ditch the dollar. World leaders are discussing a move to a single currency. And let's see, the story comes out of the Moscow Times, reported that Russian leaders that are coming to the G20, world leaders in London, it's just in a few weeks, and the leaders of various other nations such as Libya and Iran have begun speaking about creating single currencies. Some are saying that would be the euro. What is your take on that?
Well, there's been conversation for about the last couple years about another major currency that would be something that would counter the dollar. Some people thought it would be the euro. And then there was a conversation that Iran was going to try to develop a group of countries that would buy and sell oil using the euro or another currency. We're the reserve currency. We're the major currency in the world right now. China holds a lot of dollars. Other countries hold a lot of dollars, and the dollar has had its ups and it's had its downs, and now it's had its ups, and now it starts to move down again. And there's a concern if the Federal Reserve continues to put all these dollars into the market, then the dollar is going to continue to get weaker and weaker and weaker because of the printing practices of the Federal Reserve.